Hello and welcome back to our last set of slides here from Module 1. And here we're just going to talk very briefly about our audience and the purpose for writing. Only a few slides here, shouldn't take too long. Okay, so when we were talking about our audience, the importance of considering the audience and the purpose for the message, ultimately what you're doing is you are adapting your message to the specific audience. And when you adapt the message, a whole range of things can go into play, such as the ones that I pointed out in the previous set of slides, where we talk about whether the organization, the culture of the organization, as they call it, is vertical or horizontal, if departments work independently of each other, or they are dependent on someone else. All these things matter, because what happens is the more effectively you can communicate your message to that other person or to the department and the person that represents it, then the clearer your message will be for them to turn around and act on that which you're asking them to do. It's really that simple. So you can make your ideas relevant to your audience by thinking about that audience, thinking about their experiences, their interests. In the case I mentioned again previously about contacting a publisher, clearly I want them to be excited in this project that I feel really strongly about, and I need to present to them the same degree of excitement and interest that I had in writing it, that I would like to have them in publishing it. So you want to be able to sort of transfer that energy, that excitement, and that keenness that you have on something you've now finished that is your own, and get someone else just as excited. So whether you're speaking, you're writing, you're listening, you're viewing, all those things matter in terms of presentation, the relationship between the speaker and the listener, or the writer and the reader, whatever it may be. All these things really matter. So if you know your audience well, much of this analyzing and adapting and sort of changing slightly is going to be done, like I said before, intuitively, almost unconsciously. So you're going to ask yourself 4 sort of main questions. The first one being, who will read it and why, right? If it's a simple email, chances are that one person is going to read it and they're going to act on either the suggestion or the command that you've now given them. Please have a copy of your report on my desk in triplicate by Friday morning. Pretty straightforward. Who's going to read it? Obviously the person that's putting together the report. Why should they read it? Well, because you've asked them to finish it by Friday or by Thursday night. So some of these things are often very simple, but they are worth considering. 2, what are the reader's needs and goals? Okay, what is the reader of this email that I've sent out about finishing a project on a Friday morning? What are the reader's needs? Well, they need to finish it up. It may only be a week from now, but whatever loose ends they need to tie up, they need to follow through with it. So the needs and goals really should be clearly spelled out in the email. Don't assume they know. If the email is specifically to ask for this, to make that request, make the request. Make it very clear and explicit. 3, how do I make communications clear for managers? You do it by providing them always enough information to allow them to make a decision in terms of manpower, in terms of what needs to be done, if money needs to be spent or funds need to be allocated somewhere. Okay, the communications has to be clear to the managers, because you're asking them to consider something, to do something, to follow through with something. And so the needs for the managers, the goals, need to be clearly spelled out. And 4, what might the reader's preferences or objections to the report be? Well, they may be bad news. Hey, I'm sorry, but we can't follow through with this. Hey, we don't have the funds to support this any longer. If it's bad news, you still need to present it, but you need to figure out a way to present it that is going to minimize the negative impact that the message has. You can't lie, you can't sugarcoat it, but you can still present it in such a way that the message is softened. It's still a negative message, but it is softened. It is softened. So you can do this if you know your audience. If you don't know the audience, it becomes a little bit more difficult. And if that's the case, again, always defer to a more formal style. Never defer to an informal style, because you just don't know. Though the reader may find this message kind of bordering on ignorant, because it's too informal. yo this and yeah, and acronyms and smiley faces. No, you don't want to be doing that. Okay, so what you do want to do though is ask yourself, how will the audience react to your message? So really this is quite similar to what I talked about before, but it is really important. So when the audience may see your message as unimportant, you want to make sure that you fix that little problem. So if you think the audience are going to consider the message as unimportant, you can do one of four things. You can put the main point of the email in the subject line. That's important. Notice here, right, the subject line is non-existent. There's nothing there. You want to be able to write down what it is that you're trying to tell them. 2, make the action as easy as possible. The way in which to follow through with the actions as clear as possible. 3, suggest a realistic deadline for the action. If you're going to contact someone and the task is fairly complex, don't ask them to do it and have it ready for tomorrow when you know it's going to take 3 weeks. Just don't. Contact that person early enough for them to be able to follow through reasonably and logically with the task at hand, and then contact them maybe about 2/3 of the way up with a kind of a heads up, a status report kind of email. You can do that. And 4, keep the message as short as possible. So if you think the message will be considered unimportant, this is one of the ways in which you want to do it. When the message is short and sweet, it gets right to the point. So there's no sort of issue as to whether or not they're going to understand what you're saying. It will be very clear. Now, how will the audience react to your message? If there's a possibility of negative feelings, you want to make sure that you consider that. And there's 3 simple things. We're going to talk about this in more detail next week and the week after. But if you think that the message may contain negative feelings, or at least will elicit negative feelings, you can do the first. Avoid phrases that could be seen as condescending, arrogant, rude, outright hostile, or uncaring. Think through the message. Read it through and think about being not the writer, but the receiver of this message. How would you like it if somebody wrote to you like that, with that tone of voice and that many exclamation marks? Not very well. And if you think, no, I wouldn't want to receive this, you might want to rewrite it. 2, using positive emphasis to counteract the natural tendency to sound sort of negative. There's a word missing there, so I apologize. But use positive emphasis to counteract the natural tendency to sound, down and dour and negative overall. Yeah, it is important. Just like I'd shown you previously, you can use positive terms. You will be happy rather than you won't be sorry. Just the word sorry, just it popping out in the sentence, even unconsciously, may color that message ever so subtly. And then finally, develop logic and reader benefits very fully. Make sure that the reason for reading this email and acting on it is positive. It's a good thing. Whether it's trying to convince a publisher to publish your book, whether it is to convince a company that they owe you money, that you signed the warranty, you sent it off in good faith, and your motorcycle is still good for 3 more years and something happened to it. You don't have to scream at them, but you can be firm and consistent and state your case. And you can do it logically and say, look, I bought this motorcycle in good faith. You stress that I take on the warranty, that I purchase it, and I did, and now something has happened. I would like you to honor your end of the bargain, your end of the contract. So the reader benefits, it may be that they have to, fork out some money, or they may have to absorb a cost. But if they don't, you know what? You can also go on social media and you can type up a statement saying, I never want to buy a motorcycle from this company, and you identify them. So even though you may not be presenting benefits in an explicit way, the reader still needs to consider it, because guess what? Because social media exists, if customers are not dealt with in a manner that they feel is correct, they can always let people know about it, right? And people can bitch and complain on Facebook and wherever else, on Twitter, and can really knock down a company. You can literally put a company out of business by bad-mouthing them because of something that may or may not have happened to you. You don't want to be a troll, but you also want to make sure that what you're telling is the truth. And say, I bought this motorcycle, I bought the warranty. 6 months later, my gas tank fell off or something, whatever. And they won't replace it. They will completely ignore it. They have not responded to my emails or my letters, my calls. Yeah, now you go to social media. Guess what? You do not look like the loser. The company looks like the loser. The motorcycle company looks like the loser, not you, because you followed protocol. You did everything logically and reasonably, and they're not going to honor your warranty. Now you can go to social media, and there it becomes a much bigger game. And the organization that you're complaining about, they've got to do something about it. Okay, so that was pretty brief. I just wanted to consider that in terms of the audience analysis and purpose, because that is very important. And that's the end of our slides. So I will see you hopefully on Thursday, and take care and have a wonderful weekend before the beginning of school.